Yeah, so we bit of a new development here. We do have a guest on the podcast today, but someone more near and dear to Steph. So would you like to make the introduction?
I will. I think she's sleeping. So yeah, baby Florence is joining us today for the podcast and first appearance, first of many. I think it's going to be interesting. There you go. If you can hear her, she's saying hello. Um, so it's lovely to have you on the podcast, Florence. Will be, like I said, the first of many. Hopefully, she's kind to us for the first one. So it's been a wild ride, man. Like the last week and a half, the amount of things that you just get thrown into, and you learn, like I said before this, about what the human body is capable of from both my perspective, but then also for my wife. Like, wow, man, it just puts everything into perspective. And it's like I said, if you think you're tired, you're not. And if you think you can work on no sleep or you can't work on any sleep, like, man, you definitely can. Especially you. I mean, you get 9 hours. I reckon my wife's averaging probably 1 to 2 hours a night, and she's functioning just. So it's amazing what's capable. That's for sure. What you're capable of. What's possible.
Yeah, I mean you mentioned before we hit the record button that you're almost more productive now.
Mm,
It's
yeah, but it's weird though. Like it's not for motivation. It's just I feel more driven because I don't want to do um my family like a disservice. Almost, you kind of got that drive, and you got people that wants to always be with you or be around you. And although they make it hard because that's all that they do is they kind of like they're upset because of a sore tummy, or they're upset because they haven't slept, or like, and so all they'll do is whine or just carry on. So you kind of you know like I said, if you think that you could do it, if you think that you're tired beforehand, you can't do it. You definitely are going to be more tired when you got a little one. Um, but then you also have like this drive to want to do more for them or with them as well. So yeah, and as you can hear, it's like it's gnarly, it's nuts. When's the time for Mr. Scar? Is there a time for Mr. Scar?
what do you mean?
Well, it's only a matter of time before um, you're going to be popping out little scars.
I don't know. I don't know if the world can deal with more of me.
there's there's
No, I
every
don't
reason.
know.
Oh,
I don't know.
you
Oh,
still got plenty of time. Yeah, she's
beautiful
ready
little
to.
baby.
Yeah, she is. She's just like I said before the podcast. She's had like because the milk's come in and Ruby's breastfeeding. She's had like some big stomach issues, and so it's like that's all that it really is. That's the only reason, that and probably lack of sleep is the reason why she's crying a little bit, and obviously when she's hungry as well, she's feeding like a champ. She looks exactly like Ruby, um, and she got no looks from me at all, like nothing, not a thing. But she feeds like me, she poops like me, and that's it. That's it. But yeah,
And she got hair.
yeah, she does. She's got a little bit of hair, but you can't really see it because of the light. But she's
She
got a
popped
little
out
bit.
with a yeah. She's got almost like a full head of hair there.
Got more hair than you, I reckon. No.
Just about.
Yeah, yeah. But she's good. Tell us, Matt. Your age. When would you suggest training for little ones
I don't
on
know.
the soccer speed program?
4 to 6 weeks. No. As soon as they can walk. No.
Yeah. Have you
I
seen
don't.
Have you seen that little one? He's 10 months old and he's lifting like a one. No, what is it? He's picking up a ball. I reckon it's a 2 or 3 kilo ball, and he's like 10 months old. Like, and
Oh,
he's just
he
like,
just like
yeah,
yeah.
crazy.
That video is hilarious. I think I don't know. I think you could probably start weight training somewhere between 12 and 15.
Mm-hmm.
You could actually start it, but like there was some interesting stuff I was looking at with like college or tendon development.
Hmm.
Like your tendons grow, like they only actually physically grow until you're like 18, 17 or 18.
You're talking about like in terms of the length?
No, it's like the thickness.
Oh, okay.
So they don't have a significant growth in terms of actual size after you're 18, really. Like you can like reinforce them with the collagen growth, but like
Hmm.
you're never gonna be like 18 with a tendon like this and then be 25 with a tendon like that. That can only happen when you're 18 under and still growing.
Okay.
So I think that's probably a key thing to focus on when you're working with young people. Like not young as in like 20, but young as in like 17 and under, is like let's actually develop larger tendons for you.
Because you could, because they, well, with younger kids, like a majority of the time they're tendon dominant, and so you want to you want to be able to work with that. Obviously you still have to be diligent and careful in a way where you're not stressing or overstressing the tendon too much. It's going to cause inflammation or tendonitis or anything like that. So you have to be smart about how you do it. um, but it's still like you want to be working more on that because it's going to be easier to develop. Well, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, it's going to be easier to develop muscular strength than it is going to be to develop tendon strength later on in their life. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say absolutely. And it's like everybody wants bigger, thicker tendons and ligaments and connective tissue
Mm.
because it's like that's just stronger. Like you much rather have twice the thickness of a tendon than somebody else.
Yeah.
But it's like that's just not going to happen once you're 25, 30, whatever.
Do you think it's still
Even
possible
20.
though? Do you think it's still
No.
possible though? It can't be done.
It's possible to like it would be like what's a good analogy here? Like you already have the beams set up in the house
Mm-hmm.
and then you can like reinforce those beams, but you'll never be able to like turn a two
Make it
by
bigger.
four into a 2x6.
Yeah, yeah, I gotcha. I gotcha. I gotcha. So,
So
and that can only be
you can make a
achieved.
difference. Yeah.
That can only be achieved though, like you said, you can reinforce it, but you can't actually make it stronger. So that can only be achieved in between the ages of what, 15 to 18, or
Under 17 is about the age. So
okay,
like from where Florence is now until she's 17, that's when you determine the size of your tendons.
okay,
And like they can get slightly bigger or smaller in terms of, like I mean if you rupture your ACL and it gets put back together, it'll probably get a little bit bigger. But like in terms of like functional size of the tendon, from what I've been looking at, what I've been reading and seeing, it's like after 17, it really isn't going to change. Not
mm,
that you can't change the ability and the structural integrity and all of that of it, but like you're not going to lay down a whole host of new tendon tissue and double the size. So that's why it's like I would imagine when you're a kid, like as much time as you can spend outside running and jumping and playing and doing all these things that'll develop the tendons that we know, like
mm.
that's crucial.
So essentially, like what ATG is doing is reinforcing those tendons, not necessarily making them bigger, thicker, and stronger. Well, sorry, bigger and thicker, but making them stronger through reinforcing them, not through actually making them bigger. Correct?
Yeah, I think so. It's like it's a little bit challenging, like in the true like biology sense of it, like
Mm.
with the collagen and the fascicles and the fibers and all that stuff that
Mm.
I'm not necessarily an expert on, that people know
Yeah.
much more about than I do. But like there was a book written about horse tendons, I think it was,
Yeah.
and like it there's a really significant difference in a uh, a horse that's like been out and running in pasture versus a horse that's just been like hanging out inside all day.
Well, it's kind of like the cows, the grass fed versus the versus the ones that are grain fed. Yeah.
I mean, it could be. I don't know if they standardized the diet like that, but it was like the distance that they could run around and jump and play in and all of that kind
Yeah.
of goodness. It made a big difference.
Do you feel like because we've been so conditioned to be in the gym that now it's gone to like we don't get out as much anymore? Like that's the reason why we're kind of not like those horses, and we're more susceptible to ACL, more susceptible to everything else.
I'm sure that's part of it. I don't know that the gym is necessarily the reason behind that. I think the gym is doing a lot, if properly done, to counteract that. But I think it's like you and I just like sitting around here right now, like, and not going and running around and chasing down animals to hunt every day. And like, I don't know, footwear could be an option, like overuse injuries, improper diet. I think there's a ton of things that go into it, but also just like the anatomy of it. Like horses have these ridiculous, ridiculous tendons. Humans not as much. Maybe the Achilles, but nothing even close to what a horse has tendon wise.
What do you think then is like in terms of the athletic development for the younger kids? What's something that's going to be like, okay, your top three? What are your top three bang for your buck? You're a young kid, you're 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. Where are you going to be focusing most of your attention on first?
Uh, ooh, 14, 15, 16, 17. I think those are the ages where things can start to shift a little bit. Like 14, you're gonna the younger you are, the more I think you just go out and sprint and jump and play and then do a little bit of building the base. And then once you're like when you're into the 17, 18 sort of range, then it's like take what you have and build upon it. Like then you start to push the lifts hard. Like it's like when you're 14, it's like cool, get your Nordics down, start to squat a bit of weight, get your split squats done, get good at chin ups, get good at push ups, like simple things like that, and then go run and play as much as possible without overloading your tendons and the connective tissue to continue to build that structure. And then when you get older, it's like, all right, spend time reinforcing it still, but then it's like let's put a little bit of size on, and a little bit of strength on, and use what you built without losing it.
Right, we're gonna have to pause it here for a sec. I think someone's hungry. Give me a sec.
No problem. After the lunch intermission,
Yeah, lunch. She's having breakfast, lunch, dinner, brunch, snack, tea time, tea afternoon snack, morning snack. She's just like I said, man. She looks nothing like me, but she is every little bit of me inside. Eats, poops, the works. That's just all. It's all her, and
baby's
I can't
baby's
feed
gotta
her. So
eat. That's
baby's got
that's
to eat.
baby's gotta eat. Baby's gotta grow.
Yeah. So back to the athletic kind of key for youth because I think that it's getting more and more um, out there that a lot more kids are actually starting to realize, maybe their parents are starting to realize, I don't know, the potential of actually doing some extra gym work outside of sport. A lot of things that I've seen and read and heard is that you can no longer actually just worry about being good at your sport because it's not going to be enough. It was many years ago, but now it's like you need to be stronger, you need to be more athletic, you need to be faster, you need to be more powerful. So like if you don't have that and if you don't have access to that, you're kind of going to be left behind. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think there's probably more of a need for it earlier now because I think kids probably spend less time running around and playing tag and doing whatever. Like
Mm.
me and one of my best friends growing up, we played this game. We called it FUD. It, it doesn't mean anything, but it was this stupid game where we would take like the American football, and one person would start, and then you would throw it in the air, and then the whole goal was just to get to it first. So we would just wrestle until somebody got to the ball, and then once somebody got it, you stood up, and whoever had it would just throw it again, and we would just play that for like hours, and it was like the stupidest game ever. But we thought it was so much fun. We would play outside in the grass in the yard, and it was like, I mean, I don't know any like 10-year-old kids, so I don't know if kids still play games like that or if it's like iPads. But I don't want to sound like the old guys. Like everybody just sits around and watches TV now, but like there's a physical benefit to those kind of games, like a
Mm.
huge physical benefit to those kind of games.
Especially for young boys, like, because that's something that has been written in literature, is that like boys need to be able to, physically exert themselves, whether it's through play fighting or through wrestling. I mean, you see it also in throughout like the animal kingdom, like with lion cubs wrestling with Papa Lion, like they're the types of things that are being like missed, that competitiveness, a competitive edge of like doing something, even though it's playing and it's not like there's a real winner or loser, especially with the game of FUD. Like it's just throw a ball up in the air and and
And
then
go
just
chase
wrestle
it.
each other. Yeah, yeah. But there's like that's kind of like tapping into the masculine potential that I think is really is lacking in a lot of society, especially in sport. Like you have a I can't remember who said it. It might have been Ben. It might have been Keegan, where they were saying like you want to be playing if you're playing as an under 12, or like sorry, you've got rugby players. Especially the in terms of like the size difference, you've got under 16s playing against under 12s. The under 16s are going to beat them every single day of the week just because of their physical nature and their size. Now, this might not compare or like relate back to what we're talking about, but you want to have kids who are physically strong, who are capable of being able to like control their emotions as well. Because I've had some kids come and see me and like they're just unable to handle, even if it's just pushing or pulling a sled, like they're unable to actually physically, mentally, and emotionally handle that because they let their emotions get over them. The physical pain causes them to cry, and then it's just that's it. It's game over. They don't want to do the session anymore because they've just experienced this feeling that is it's not something that they're used to. And so although it's like real physical at the moment, like a lot of what we're talking about athletes, young athletes developing themselves to become better at their sport or just to become more athletic, I think that there's so much that's kind of missed in terms of like the mental and emotional aspects of young kids actually building resilience to then be able to, if they can't do something here in the gym, them getting better at it or them achieving it, like a pull up or even just pushing and pulling a sled or something, some other athletic feat that's going to transition into their sport because it's going to provide them with the resilience to be able to actually compete better in their sport, not because they're stronger physically, but also because they are stronger physically, but because they're stronger mentally and emotionally, they can actually handle more that gets thrown at them. That's what I think that is kind of missing at the moment. People, I think a lot of people are kind of missing that fact as well. Like young kids are so fragile, so we treat them with bubble wrap. I'm not saying I'm going to get Florence when the time that she starts walking to push and pull a sled with me. Like that's not the point. But the point is like sometimes things aren't always going to go the way you want them to go, and it depends on how you actually can work with those things. So it's a bit of a off topic, on topic kind of rant. But do you coach? Do you have one-to-ones or online clients that are the younger ages?
Yeah, I 16, 17 is about the youngest people that I work with. And it's like I don't know. I haven't dealt so much with the mental aspect of it. Um, in that same sort of sense. I mean it all I guess it probably doesn't vary that much between the levels of play with athletes because like you're still gonna get some little babies that can make it to like a Division 1 level or whatever. Um, I mean, I knew players like that, but I think the ones that are willing a lot of times to make the leap and make the jump and look for extra help outside of it aren't usually the ones that are have mentality issues like that. So I haven't had to spend really any time like that
Yeah.
for me, but
The young ones I've spent the time with are, like 13, 14, 15 year olds, like in that bracket where, um, there's something that there's a challenge or something that's been put in front of them, and the easy way out is just to not do it. But it's like you can't just not do it. Like you can not do it now, but you're gonna have to do it eventually. And it, it's something I'm a big believer in terms of like that mental and emotional resilience of like this shit's gonna hurt. Like this shit's gonna continually present itself to you in many different ways and many different forms. And you can tap out if you want to, but you're not going to go to where you want to go, I feel, anyway. And those players that you're talking about who made it to Division 1 as babies, quote unquote, Matty Scale, it's like how much potential did they actually have, and or untapped potential did they actually have because they weren't mentally and emotionally strong enough to be able to go that extra mile. Like, imagine if they were strong enough, where would that have taken them? It may have taken them further, it may not have taken them further, but you can't assume that, just because they're physically capable and mentally they just kind of they give up. That's not the case, but maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, if I had a nipple for every time we mentioned Alex Hormozy, I'd be a rich man right now. But um, there was a post, I don't know when this post was from, but it popped up the other day and it was like, I can't even remember what the situation was, but what stuck was like, he was like, this is what hard feels like. So it's like, in the same way, if you're working with somebody and they're like, this sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. You can kind of pop the question like, do you want to be a pro player? They'll be like, yeah. It's like, do you think it's gonna be easy to get there? They'll be like, no, it's gonna be hard. You'll be like, all right, well, this is what hard feels like. And then it's like that's just what it is. It's
Yeah,
like, are you gonna is are you just gonna it's gonna be hard. Maybe you didn't know what hard feels like until now, and now you can make the decision. Is it all right that it's gonna be hard? Because all right if it's not, it's
mm,
fine.
yeah. I think coming from the that coming from an outside source, so like the coach, for example, if you were to ever have that conversation with someone, because you've developed that relationship with the client, or the athlete, or the person you're training with, it kind of hits a little bit harder than what it would coming from a parent or from someone who's a little bit closer, because it's like, well, you're coming to me to get better at something. You're going to you to get better at something, or you're just coming to get better in general, whatever that might be. And so asking that question, it would probably hit harder than me asking it to Florence when she's, I don't know, whatever she wants to do, when she wants to be a pro soccer player or wants to be a dancer or wants to be a singer, or like, this is what hard feels like. This is this is what it takes. I saw another thing from Hormozy, and he mentioned that, like, it was something about the hard work. Like, people work harder, longer to get where they want to. It's like, well, you could be doing all the strength work in the world working really, 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 really hard, but it's just not transferring over into what you need it for. So let's just say, for example, you just spend, I don't know, hours and hours and hours a week doing powerlifting or strongman training, and you want that to carry over into you becoming a pro footballer. Like, you can work really, really hard, but if you're not doing the hard work in the right way, you're never ever going to get the results that you want to get. Whereas if you're training smarter, whether it's as you're still training just as hard, you have more chance of becoming that pro athlete that you want to become. So training like ATG, for example, we all know how potent and powerful training in an ATG format is. It's just as hard as powerlifting, but it's like choose your hard, choose your right hard as well. Like, you can't just be just because I'm working really, really hard, I'm running Ks, I'm strength training every single day. It's just like in the gym. You're not going to go to the gym and max out every single day. Like, that's just, people might think that that's wrong. Like, you need every session to be really, really hard. It's like, well, that's only going to last for a certain amount of time before it starts killing you, or it starts, causing the opposite effect and making you worse at where you want to go. So I think choosing your heart is important.
Yeah, I mean, everything's always about the outcome. Like, the path doesn't really matter.
Mm.
Everything's about the outcome. Like, I talked to Zach Woodward about this on his podcast the other day. It was like, and I think he posted a clip of it. Like, the weight on the bar doesn't matter. If your goal is to be a better football, soccer, whatever, if your goal is to get better and more athletic, like, the weight on the bar has literally zero, like, pull. Like, it really doesn't matter. It matters that the way that it seems to matter is that as you get stronger, you probably can get more athletic, but it might not. It doesn't necessarily correlate 1 to 1. So it's not like putting more weight on the bar. It's like, oh, I can do 105 kilos today, did 104 yesterday. It's like, you're not going to be that just under 0.1, just under 1% faster. That's not how it works. It's the same thing with like business. Like, I don't really care how hard you work. Like, whatever you do to make the most money efficiently, that's what's the best way to do it. Not working 20 hours a day every day. I don't care. Like, if you work 20 hours a day and make 100 grand, or if somebody else works 4 hours a day and makes 110 grand, like, that 4 hours is better. It's like, you got more money and you work less. Like, it's all the same. It's all the same like that in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. The young athletes that are coming to see me, they come twice a week for the soccer strength, like, in person program. And because I am at the club most times, I know what their levels are going to be in terms of like the output they put into training, so I can really monitor what we're doing at the gym. And it's not like we've done 10d10s with incredible, because like, that's just being stupid doing that sort of stuff. But you still want them to, because when they're coming to training, it's like you're giving them that little bit extra each time, and then you're kind of almost like taking it away. This is what I found has really worked well with me. Is like, you give them that little bit extra, and then you almost like take it away, and you don't regress a movement or drop the weight down significantly, but you take a little bit away, and then you make them realize like how much easier that first time was. And then obviously with a lot of what we're doing, it's about that injury prevention, but then also strengthening and better in terms of athletic potential. And to be able to actually see that all come to light, like one of the boys was telling me yesterday, the game on the weekend that they played against a team who last year, I think it was, ended up in the finals. Like, they were a decent team. And he's like, man, I just, on the ball, just felt strong, being able to push players off. And it's like, it's not like we've been lifting all this weight and all of a sudden he's got like shoulders like a barbarian. Like, it's because he's understanding like what he can do with his body now and how strong he is and where he is in time and space and in relation to the ball. Like technically, he's gifted, and his ability with the ball at his feet is amazing. Now he knows how to use his arms. He knows the strength that he has to be able to use that strength to bounce off players or to have players bounce off him. And it's not like he's a big dude. Like I think that people need to understand that it's not about like, especially training throughout the year. You really got to be smart about the way that you train. If you're doing this type of training, especially as an athlete or as a footballer or as an NFL player or whatever it is, like there are more important things to putting on size, strength, speed, and power in season, I think, as in like you want them to be able to feel like shit, like I feel unstoppable here, which I reckon that's, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what it sounds like your soccer speed system and the strength system program is about, because it's not like there'd be copious amounts of massive lifts in that program. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean I've fallen in the trap. I fell in the trap for many years of thinking it's like, all right, let's do as much as possible and do all the hard things and do them early in the morning and all of these things. And it's like, do more lifting, do more training, do all of that. And it's like, that's the equivalent of, I made the analogy earlier, the 20-hour work week. Like it's not more beneficial. So that is kind of what I try to do there. It's like, let's do a little bit less, but like, let's just poke the bear a little bit. Let's stimulate it and then try and go on from that. Like I think recoverability and your levels of recovery are so much more important than I think a lot of times people give credit to. Um, like, man, I would so much rather you do 10% less in the gym and be more recovered for the next day. It's just like it's like just live to fight another day every day. Like never overdo it. Maybe underdo it sometimes, but like just don't do so much that it affects you the next day if you got training or something. It's different in the off season, obviously. You can like slam yourself, and obviously you can't burn yourself out in the off season, but like you can do things that's going to affect you the next day in the off season. During the season, you don't. Like it's just, that's probably a bad idea.
It's all about repeatability, isn't it? Like you want to be able to do it again the next day. So do what you need to, like you said, it pokes the bear. That is exactly what I'm doing here. It's like giving enough stimulus or feedback to particular muscle groups or particular movements that they start to notice, oh shit, there's a little bit of something that's happening here. And we're starting to get, a little bit more progress through. The more that I'm training, the more I'm noticing that I'm actually performing better, or the more that I'm noticing I'm not sore or stiff, or the more that I'm noticing I'm not getting injured because I'm actually being able to, create strength in these areas. Like, I'll get them to do things here that are so simple and easy and normal for me now that for them they're like, whoa, like what? How do you do like things with your ankles? For example, one of the boys that used to come here, not used to come here, that still comes here, he used to have he had a stress fracture in his foot and would constantly roll his ankles. And it's like he's been with me for the last 4 months, 4-ish months. He's had one ankle roll, and it was just from like a collision, a tackle. Someone's gone over the top of his ankle, missed out a day of training, and was straight back into it again. And it's like, that's what you're training for. You're training for that unknown. Like I'm a big believer in that too. You don't know what's going to happen out in the soccer field because there's so many variables that can potentially go wrong or that could potentially happen. So you're training for the stuff that's out of your control. Like train for the unknown, train for the things that might happen. You don't know when they're going to happen.
Yeah, and the thing with the intensity is that like when you're a relatively untrained 2 or less years of like actually good training, a lot of people have been training for a couple of years and are still pretty much untrained, but like you can gain a significant amount of strength and a significant amount of size training at like 70 or 80%. And that's so much easier to recover from than if you were to go and max out every day. Like it's fun when you're 16 or 17 or 18. It's like, all right, let's go. We're gonna max out the bench press on Monday, and then we'll squat on Tuesday, and we'll max the deadlift on Wednesday, and then we'll do bench press again on Thursday. Like, first of all, you're gonna absolutely fry your nervous system. And then you're gonna be horrible in training, first of all, because you're just absolutely fried like that. But you're not going to gain any size from that. It's not enough to stimulate the muscle growth. And it's also not going to work that well in terms of building strength. Like you might build a 1 rep capacity, you might get a little more neurologically efficient, but the strength and the durability and all of that we want is for most athletes is going to be built probably the most efficiently, the most effectively in that like 70, 80, 85% of your 1 rep max range for like 6 to 8 reps. And not to say that you can't go max out with your friends every once in a while and have some fun, but like the basis of your training for building the resiliency and building the strength and building the capacity to prevent ankle sprains like your guy is in that 6 to 8 reps, 70 to 85% of your 1 rep max range. And there's obviously different things that go along with that, but like for youth athletes, that's where you want to be the majority of the time.
Yeah, yeah, and I still think that there's a lot of kids out there, the youth athletes, who aren't doing that at all. Like they're going to see, and this just might be me kind of like not giving shit, but a lot of the things you see young athletes doing in the middle of the season, it's like a whole, and it's, no, I'm going to stay on one side of the fence this time. I'm not going to say on the fence, which is what I usually do. But like, it's a lot of the whole jumping with the weights and all the like the landing and all that kind of bullshit. And I think they're things that I've seen that I think there's so much more that could be done instead of holding onto dumbbells or trap bar and jumping up and down or jumping off of a box and landing in a particular way. It's like there's so much more bang for your buck that is out there. And it's not like, it might sound like me, I'm like, oh my God, ATG, like, oh, it's the best. And it's like, well, it is the best. That's why I keep talking about it, because a lot of the things that you've been doing with your athletes, I've been doing with my athletes, like there's a significant amount of goodness that's coming from that. Whereas like a lot of these other, the speed ladder crap or that jumping plyometrics thing, especially in season, like we've spoken about before, it just doesn't make sense to me anymore. Why would you be doing that kind of stuff? Why would you be focusing on that when that's something that you do all the time at training? Like there's so much extra that you could do. Imagine if you focused on the body being healthy, or you training the body to be healthy or healthier than what it currently is now. Like, and it might already be really, really healthy. All right, let's make it healthier. We can make it healthier, make the tissues healthier, make the muscles, tendons, everything healthier, make you move more efficiently. Let's see if we can get a little bit more range into you as well at the same time. Imagine how that's going to transition to you onto the pitch. Like that's as simple as, or that's, I think anyway, that's as simple as it needs to be. You don't need, because, and this is all coming to me now, this is probably the baby brain and the sleep. So if it sounds like uncomprehendable, I apologize in advance, but like you think about all the stuff that these kids are doing with the weights, jumping and the box, like you're tapping into, you think about the pyramid, you're tapping into something that is only like this. That's what you're working in. Imagine if you can build, like we've spoken about, you build that base bigger and bigger and bigger, like then the potential is so much greater. It's not just having this, you're working within this small little range of like, oh, we can do 10 kilos now with those, like in each hand with the depth or the squat jumps or whatever it is. Like, how is that going to transition into you being like better at your sport and be able to, because like it's upgrading hardware. That's what I think it is. Anyway, doing a lot of this stuff for me in terms of like, you think about a laptop or a phone or a computer, it can only take so much as what it can handle. Like if you've got an iPhone 1, you've got the current iOS system on the iPhone 1 is just going to crash and burn. Like that's what I think is happening with youth athletes, or a lot of youth athletes at the moment. They're doing a lot of that stuff. They're trying to upgrade their software, but then it's only a matter of time before the hardware just goes, nah, just tip off the cliff. But that's the way that I see it. And that's the way that I think is happening. And it's a shame because there's so many kids out there that have this potential to like be incredible athletes or be incredible at their sport or just be amazing human beings. And it's like they're just tapping out. They're just tapping out because they're just getting wrong information or not as good information as what they potentially could be.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty big case to be made for filling in the gaps with your strength
Mm.
training in season and then not doing too
Oh
much more than
yeah.
that. Like, I mean, how many like slight knee bend angle activities do you do during a game? Like all of them, like a million. And it's like, well, all right, let's build a little bit of resiliency in the full range. And that doesn't mean like I was on Instagram while you were going and getting the baby some food, but I there was this video somebody posted of like a 17-year-old squatting like 505 pounds, and it was honestly one of the worst squats I've ever seen in my entire life. And I so badly wanted to put it on my story and be like, this is so bad. And I mean I didn't put it on my story, but like it's things like that, seeing it in season, it was like the technique was terrible. Dude squatted like 6 inches above parallel. Everybody was going crazy. It was like this isn't helping. I don't know that this kid could squat 135 pounds all the way down. And like this, I'm sure this is like a neurological shot. Like you get a little bit of adrenaline out of it, but also like you're probably gonna be fried for the next 2 days off of
Mm.
that. So like everything is about intent. The whole
Oh yeah.
thing, like that's what creates the changes. Is like that's I mean it's what we talked about earlier. It's like I don't it doesn't matter what the weight on the bar is. Like the fact that it was 505 pounds like really doesn't matter.
Mm.
Like there's probably like a general you can squat this much, you'll be a little bit better of a mover, but also like not if it looks like that. Like that was no powerlifting judge in the world would ever give that as a lift. And like powerlifting standards aren't even like good squats in my opinion. They're
Mm.
powerlifting squats, so they're their own kind of thing, but they're not athletic development squats.
Yeah.
That one was bad.
I guess you're talking about intent, like for a power lifter. Not talking about the video you just saw. I'm talking about powerlifters in general. Like if that's the intent is for them to get better at powerlifting, then you want to be lifting like a powerlifter.
Yeah,
But
that's the result.
then
Lifting more weight
exactly
is
right.
the goal, so you got to just lift more weight.
Yeah. But in even from that perspective, as a powerlifter, you still want to be able to fill in the gaps too. Like with an athlete, same thing, because technically speaking, you are an athlete. So you want to be able to fill in those gaps and whatever you need to do to fill in those gaps. It's funny. I see this meme come up where it's like the guy the guy riding the bike, and like his it's like a picture of him. He's riding the bike and he's like does powerlifting, and then it's like does no mobility training with the photo underneath, and it's him putting a stick into the front wheel, and it's him just going ass up, and it's like powerlifting I think it's like powerlifting sucks or weightlifting sucks or whatever it is. Weightlifting gets me injured, but it's like dude, you've done nothing to help yourself here. You haven't done anything to fill in the gaps or to help you like deal with the amount of stress your body's feeling at the moment. But yeah, it's just something that came to my mind. Do you think that for filling in the gaps now, again, without harping on about ATG, but do you think that's what Ben has created is something that for athlete or for athletic development does a really, really, really simple and efficient job and good job of filling in those gaps? For example, like a zero um, workout. Do you think that does a great job in actually like just attacking those gaps and filling in those gaps? Obviously, there's some things that are missed when you're doing it, but overall, would you say that like the zero is something that is kind of like it's been formulated really, really well that fills in those gaps that athletes can use?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Ben has created is like the programs that fill in the hit weak links for 80% of people,
Hmm.
like or as many people, maybe it's more than 80%, but it's like everybody's got a weak link somewhere, and it's like that's the only program that I can think about off the top of my head that like makes those things cool,
Yeah.
so that you actually like put the intent on it. Like nobody cares about dumbbell external rotations, or like nobody likes deep split squats, but like that's those are probably like the biggest weak links in people's knees and people's shoulders. So if you can create a program that gets people like excited about that and puts the intent in towards it, then like that's gonna solve a ton of problems for people. Obviously, there will be other cases where it's like different things, and maybe you need something different for your whatever your weak link is. But like, I think that's kind of the magic of it, and it's like that. Those aren't programs that are gonna turn you into an Olympic sprinter.
Mm.
It's just not specific enough. It's not all of that, but like it's fantastic for taking somebody that's like, yeah, I'm in a terrible position right now with my body. It's like, all right, well, let's just like make sure that let's just bring everything up a little bit.
Mm.
Like, well, that's then your baseline is in a much better spot than it was before. Is that like, are you gonna hit your peak potential with that? No, like that's just not that's not reasonable. But like just getting 10% better at everything, it's gonna put you in a much better place than you were before. And so I think that's what Bennett's created.
Yeah. With your soccer strength and soccer speed system, that's what they're called. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. How are you finding the feedback from the players around the world? I've seen like some things that have been put up, which is great. Like obviously you're only kind of putting up a little bit here and there, but has there been good feedback from them?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's. I don't want to say like putting together a program to help people is easy, but it's like when you're clear on what people are missing, like then you just give them what they're missing. Like it's not a super complex thing. Like most people's full knee bend sucks, and most people's posterior chains are really bad, and then they can use some ankle stiffness. Like that's what it is. Like you give people those things, you give people the building blocks on it, and then like let them go run and play soccer and transform what you've done in the weight room into ability on the field. I mean, that's what the whole goal is. And again, not everybody's gonna have a weak posterior chain. Not everybody needs more ankle stiffness. Not well, pretty much everybody needs more ability to create stiffness in the ankle. Not everybody's full knee bend sucks, but like 98% of people's do. And 98% of people are going to benefit from that. So if you just dose that in there in a correct amount, that you don't absolutely kill them, and that you don't give them so little that it doesn't actually create a change, then like people are gonna be doing better. People have reached out that they have felt faster and played better after 2.5 weeks, and things are looking better. Like probably halfway through for a lot of people now, a third of the way through other people. And I mean, it's just when you know what people need, it's easy make to give them a benefit.
And you're probably going based upon your own experience, previous experience as well. Hey, like with what you wish you had or what you needed for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is a lot of what I needed, but it's also like I don't know that I'm your average case in
Mm.
terms of athletes. So it's also like what the consensus of what other people I've worked with needed, and maybe even a little bit more skewed towards that because I had a host of issues. So it's more geared towards the average player, and I guess I'm below average, probably physically from where I was, or maybe above average in terms of injury ability. But um, yeah, it's like I mean, your best advice is only going to apply to 80% of people, so it's not perfect for everybody, but it's going to be beneficial for just about everybody, and really hit the nail on the head for a lot of people.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, like I said, I've seen quite a number of testimonials that have been coming out, which there's obvious benefit in them actually doing what they've been doing with you? Has it been mainly strength, mainly speed, then strength? Because you've got the two programs, don't you? You've got the strength and the speed one. What have you found has been the best out of the two,
I mean,
or who've gotten the most feedback?
I think I get more feedback on the speed program because it's easier to kind of quantify. Like, yeah, I caught that guy. I feel pretty fast now. And the only thing I've changed is I started this program. Versus the strength, it's like maybe you feel better, maybe you hit somebody off the ball, but it's a harder thing to kind of like quantify in the top of your head. He's like, yeah, I do kind of just feel better. It's just not an easy thing to quantify. So I do get more feedback on the speed program,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not to say I don't get feedback on the strength program, but it
A little harder to quantify how you are feeling stronger. Like, I mean, it's
yeah.
still like I've managed to hold players up. I've like that's still his strength. So yeah, they must just be feeling. Would you say a majority of players that have taken it? I mean, I don't know what your do you get people to fill in positions like that they play on the field? Because that would be really interesting to see the number of athletes or number of footballers who purchased the program, what position they actually play in.
I haven't. Thinking about it, I don't know. I feel like there's a pretty significant number of defenders from the guys that I know. I don't know. I don't know each individual well enough to be able to give you a position up for everybody. And there's people that aren't soccer players too on there. Like there's some, like
Mm-hmm.
field hockey and referees. Like it's I mean speed is a transferable skill. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like if you trust me to make you faster as a soccer player, like you probably get faster as a field hockey player too. It's the same thing. You just upper body, you would probably do something different, but I mean speed is speed. And it's only different if you need to create more force. Like a running back, you would want, yeah, we'd be like, all right, you should squat more. You need to incline press more than a soccer player. But like yeah, I don't know the positions off the top of my head to give you that. That would be a cool thing to look at though.
Yeah, just to see like those who are, because that's interesting to hear that maybe like the majority of them are defenders. Maybe because defenders just want to work harder than attackers. Like that's, I mean, that's a given.
I mean, they're
So
just slower in general, right?
they're slower with
They
their
need the
bodies,
help.
smarter with their brain, man. That's what I always say. We're always quicker up with our head.
If that's what you want to believe, I don't. I'm sure there's a little bit of. I'm sure there's not any bias there, right?
There's no bias. It's all true. It's all true. I mean, hey, well, defenders are always the ones that are, having to figure out when to place a tackle, whereas attackers always have the ball. They're always in control. But mind you, defenders always they're living rent free in the back of your head. That's what I'd be doing if I was coming up against you, rent free, man, rent free.
Oh,
You'd be paying me rent.
you wish, you wish. I'm sure I'd have an apartment rent free right in the back of your brain there.
I love it. I love
No,
it. Have you gone? What was that?
I would say no rent,
Yeah, yeah,
no
no,
rent
no.
paid.
Have you been working on anything else lately?
Yeah, one of the things I've been looking into a little bit more is have you ever seen RPR, reflexive performance reset? It's
No.
one of Cal Dietz founded it with JL Holdsworth, I think his last name, and Chris Corfist. It's sort of like um how would I describe it to you? It's sort of like a neurological reset for your body. Um
Mhm.
I don't know, I can show you some of it afterwards, but it's sort of like the neurological stuff that Keith does, but it's a little bit more of just like a self do it, like readiness, a little bit of breathing thing. it is really interesting because you can like do testing. And I've done the testing on a couple people, and it's interesting. Like you can like a rotational test is you like try and rotate somebody, and then they fight it, and if they're weak, you like rub circles on their like spinal erectors, and then like hit it, and then they'll notice that they're much stronger in anti-rotation. And there's a whole bunch of things like that. It's interesting. It's hard for me to just like explain it. That's probably the worst thing for me to have brought up to because it's a really difficult thing to explain over a video call, but it's I don't know, it's a really beneficial thing. And there some of the cases that they've shared are some ridiculous results in terms of huge reductions in soft tissue injuries
Mhm.
just with kind of resetting firing patterns and everything, and even some pretty significant drops in like resting heart rate and
Wow.
uh different physiological changes. It's interesting stuff. So it's
Mm.
I'm going through the first level of it right now online, but it's I think that's a frontier that isn't super well understood or standardized yet, is the neurological function that goes along with all the physical stuff, and not software in the way of like doing speed ladders and all of that, but software in terms of like compensation patterns, muscle firing, different things like that. Like if you have a faulty pattern and you that could be responsible for your hamstring pull rather than your Nordics or weak or something. So it's that's I don't know. It's an interesting thing.
Sounds very similar to, well, not similar, but the concepts behind it to kinesiology. So like in terms of like the muscle testing aspect of it, where it's like you're testing what's weak, what's strong. Because I've seen and done a little bit of that sort of stuff as well. But I think this sounds a little bit more um, like it can be applied to athletes or that athletic aspect, whereas the kinesiology I've seen has been more so that mental and emotional stuff that's kind of sitting internally within you, that woo woo kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's. I think there's a big place for that, but that's and like what you were talking about, and that is definitely missing. You know, like you want to kind of find an edge, and like I think back to those players too who were always straining their hamstring or doing something to their calf, and it's like, but they're doing all this stuff at the gym. They might not be doing the right stuff, but at least they're still doing something that they were constantly doing. It's like, well, why do you constantly do that? What is it that's forcing you to, or that's making you, sorry, um, strain or tear those particular muscle groups all the time? Like there has to be something. Is it that you are actually weak, or is there something else that's kind of hanging about there?
Yeah. Why do two people that are both tight and one of them pulls their hamstring every third week, like, and the other's never even had an injury? It's like, well, is it because of like neurological compensation patterns? It could be. Could be. Like if they're in a similar place physically. I mean the number one reason that you get injured is probably because that you had already gotten injured and just redid it. But like why did the first one happen?
Mm.
And like is the injury that causes a re-injury because there's a compensation pattern with it now? Could be. And a lot of people use RPR within a warm-up. So like every day, because you can do it really fast if you do it, if you know how to do it right. And you have all the players do it themselves. It's just like you can get it done in like 4 to 10 minutes. And I mean, it's like it's never gonna hurt anything. There's no way that you're gonna create a bad compensation pattern or like create an injury with it. But like, so it's only upside, except for the 10 minutes that you might lose if it doesn't work. But I mean, it's the my old school got a new strength coach and they implemented it in their warm up. I don't know what the injury rates change has been, but I mean, in my eyes, it's a pretty worthwhile thing to do because you can just get it done like that. And a lot of people feel a noticeable difference after you've gone through. They call it the wake up drills, but so like getting everything fired and getting your patterns right.
RPR, you said, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Reflexive performance reset.
Check it out.
Yeah, I can send you some links to some of the videos on YouTube, and I can show you some stuff afterwards. I'm not, if you ever talk to Wade Houchin,
Yeah. I was just about to
yeah,
say, is that some of the stuff that he does?
that I don't know that he does it so much anymore, but he did that before he did Square One. So Square
Okay.
One is like the closer to functional neurology stuff that he does now, but before that he did RPR, and it's like there's I think RPR is purposefully more simple and more straight to the point, hitting the major things than like applied kinesiology, Square One, functional neurology, any of those sort of things, because it's like, all right, you don't have time to do functional neurology to every single one of your players if you have 60 guys on a team, but you can teach all of them the wake up drills, and then you can like kind of have them do it and walk around. And if somebody's screwing up, you can like fix it, but everybody can do it to themselves, and you'll get, I don't know, 80% of the benefit or whatever it is. So I think that's kind of the point of it from what I can see, having done some of the RPR work, and also seeing what voodoo magic, something like function neurology looks like. It's like RPRs are so much more scalable if you're in a team
Mm,
setting. So it's interesting.
mm. Yeah, I'll check it out after this episode is finished. Speaking of which, it's been about an hour or so of
Yeah.
well, bit of interruptions. Florence was a little bit hungry, so
Yeah.
we might have to wait a little bit to get her back on the podcast. I think because she's feeding every 15 minutes. So
Yeah. You got to get back to daddy duties.
being a papa again, that's what they call us, daddy duties. Yeah.
There
Where
you
can everyone
go.
find you, Maddie?
Yeah. Score performance, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. I don't really use Twitter, but uh yeah, score performance, SKAAR performance, wherever, all the social medias. What about you? Where can everybody see little Florence and you find you?
So just on Instagram, Coach Carly with the three eyes. My wife last night, she's like, "Do you think people think that you're dead?" What are you talking about? She's like, "We haven't posted anything on Instagram for like the past week and a half." And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe some people do think that I'm dead, but oh well, if that's the case, it is what it is." So I haven't been posting as much content lately, only because like there's definitely more important things for me right now. The big one is me being a dad. So, and if you have recently or you're about to become a father or you want to become a father, like I don't have any tips or tricks. I mean, I've got one tip that you can kind of do that will help you become a father, but um, being in this early phase of fatherhood and parenthood, it's if you're not used to change and you're not used to the unknown, you better get used to it quick smart if you're becoming a father. That's for sure. Because like I spoke about in the beginning, there is no time for sleep and you're always tired, but you just manage to keep going and you get on with it. So you live your life by the little one's clock, not by your own. So yeah, in saying that, Coach Carly with the three eyes on Instagram, get in touch with me. Just reach out, ask some questions, and yeah, be happy to have a chat.
There we go. What a way to end it. All right, everybody. Talk to you next week.
See you guys.